So firstly, I'm really super excited. Most of you have probably seen the announcement that we made the list of world-changing ideas for the Wellness Awards. This Fast Company Awards is, extremely renowned across the high-tech, biotech, consumer goods industry. And the team, I'm really super proud of the team and the acknowledgement that we've got as it relates to this achievement. We were specifically focused on World-Changing Ideas Award. This is ideas that are honoring sustainable designs, innovative products, bold social initiatives, and other creative projects that are changing the way we work, changing the way we live, and how we interact with the world. And when you look at our platform technology, we very much are the essence of this as it relates to just bringing that critical human utility value to the world and making sure that we're doing this in a way that preserves our planet for future generations to come. So we were, part of the 15 companies that are improving the world of wellness. You can see with some really significant peers out there, major companies, and we're super excited with this achievement and the acknowledgement that we've got from broader industry. And it's just the timing that we're at this critical moment with the momentum that we have in the business. We really are at the cutting edge intersection of health and wellness, of technology, in our case, biotechnology, and sustainability. We're really at this critical nexus, and we're enjoying what I would call the significant tailwinds that we have that are continuing to build the momentum in the company. I want to talk a little bit about our 2022 revenue. The results were shared. The full 2022 revenue results were published recently. We delivered on $5.5 million in revenue. We're still focused to deliver the 17+ million for 2023. That's 3xing the business. And I think at this time, it's probably appropriate for me to say that given the fact that the business is getting significant, and the fact that it's getting more complex in the context of the different packages that we have, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months subscription. And it's important to understand that more than 85% of our business is subscription. So, when we talk about the fact that we brought in a large amount of customers, 25,000 customers into our business, we have a major proportion of our customers that come in as subscription customers. And given the fact that at the end of the quarter, in the past, we were reporting maybe 1 day or 2 days or 3 days after the quarter, we would report sales orders. We are now at the point where there is a significant gap between sales orders and actual revenue realized. So, for example, in 2022, for the full year, we delivered 5.9 million of sales orders. There was a $400,000 gap, which is related to revenue that could only be realized in the full year. And why? Because in the last quarter, we had so many 6-month and 12-month subscribers coming into the business that we weren't able to realize all of that revenue. We can only realize the revenue that we utilize, that we're able to realize when we actually ship product to the consumers and it actually gets to their house. These are the accounting standards. And because of that, you have a big gap between sales orders and actual revenue that you can realize. Now, it's important to understand this is the reason, one of the major reasons why we will now follow the cadence of reporting revenue and not sales orders. And this means that when you report revenue, it has to get reviewed by auditors. And that's why we will now be reporting on the same cycle as the requirements for us to actually deliver our financial statements to the stock exchange, in this case, the CSE. So on literally May 31, we will be delivering our first quarter results. And that's when we will have a broader financial update on the performance of the company. And that's going to be important as well, as we obviously are very focused on delivering a break-even cash flow position by the end of Q4. And therefore, we're going to start to really break down and unpack some of the more critical financial elements of the business, so we help you understand a little bit more around our journey to profitability. The 17+ million target, we're very focused on this and delivering on that profitability outcome by the end of fourth quarter. However, we will talk more about that on May 31 in the context of first quarter results, and probably also in the context of having already had about 2 months of the second quarter. More to come, May 31. Today, we're going to focus more on the marketing activities. Okay, great. So just reminding everybody, our high order strategy, we're focused as a company on driving revenue through our nutraceutical pillar, as well as the pharmaceutical pillar. The immediate revenue that we're going to generate as it relates to the next few years is obviously going to be focused on the nutraceutical pillar. And Dr. Brian's going to share with you today a little bit more on the activities that we're doing to drive the future revenue that we believe is considerable as it relates to the pharmaceutical pillar. I will be going through the nutraceutical piece, and Dr. Brian will be going through the pharmaceutical piece. Let's first start on the nutraceutical side. As I go through the marketing activities with you today, I didn't, just wanted to talk about marketing activities, because the marketing activities have to always be in the context of a very critical commercial framework. And as we're focused on driving profitability as a company, we're focusing on that stellar 3x revenue growth. There are some critical elements that we as a management and leadership team are focused on, or have as our key performance indicators, that everybody's signing in pretty much blood that they're going to do what it takes to deliver. And the key areas that we're focused on are on obviously driving optimal revenue management, cost management, and that's going to help us drive the break-even profitability story that's so critical for the company as we look to move to a larger exchange. And that's critical for us as we look at a listing in a larger exchange, to make sure that we're delivering that profitability quarter on quarter in order to be able to make that successful transition. So I'm going to cover the marketing activities that we're doing specifically around channel scaling, product scaling, and marketing optimization, which obviously are driving revenue management. And I'll touch a little bit today. We'll do more of this on the May 31 webinar around cost management and what we're doing on the manufacturing scaling. But I will address some of the supply questions that have been asked of me over the last couple of weeks. Everybody clear? Give me a thumbs up. Justin, is it clear? Good. All right. So let's talk about channel scaling. You're probably asking, what is Ilan thinking about when he's talking about channel scaling? This is so critical for us because we have to increase sales points in the marketplace to maximize our top of funnel investments. So for example, we're investing with our partner TBN, for example, on TV commercials. And right now we have people that will go directly to our website or to a TBN landing page, or they'll go straight to Amazon because all they do is shop on Amazon for everything that they do, or they'll go to a Walmart.com. If we don't have stock in Amazon, and many of you know, the first quarter we had no stock on Amazon up until the middle of March, people go to Amazon and there's no VINIA and you lose them. So this is absolutely critical for us to be broadening the points of sale so that we can leverage the investment that we get at the top of the funnel into multiple channels, starting first with online, and we will move with the right pace to strategically to offline channels where it makes sense for us. So Amazon, I'm very happy to say we've been in consistent supply on Amazon since the middle of March, and we've seen a huge impact in our sales, and our Amazon performance is doing really, really well. And we're going to be moving into Walmart.com in the next 6 weeks. We're busy working through the commercialization of that. I'm also very excited to say that we now, as of Tuesday night, are on subscribe and save. So this is going to take our Amazon business now to the next level. And given now that we have subscribe and save on Amazon, we'll start to invest dollars in Amazon. What's been amazing from a marketing efficiency perspective is in the last, literally since we started scaling of our business in September last year, I think we spent about $500 on Amazon, right? What we have received is purely from the above the line TV advertising and consumers seeing the TV and then going straight into Amazon because they're a hardcore Amazon consumer. Now that we have all the infrastructure set up in Amazon, we will start to lean in and start to focus more within the Amazon community to drive the business. So this is going to be a big focus for us now. Okay, product scaling. What's critical is that right now, if you look at the success that we've had so far since we started to scale the business end of August, early September, we've done it with one SKU. One SKU. This little baby is the hardest working horse that we have, right? If you look at all major e-commerce companies, they have multiple SKUs, anywhere from like 5 up to 20 SKUs, because they bring people into the funnel to buy product A, and they'll end up buying product A, B, and C, and you increase their overall consumption, overall check value, the dollars coming in, and your overall cost of marketing is lower. So it's critical for us to get our new products out, and we're working very, very hard on our range of new products. Today, I'm going to talk specifically to you to give you an update on where we are on our protein bar and functional coffee and tea. We added in a tea, and I'll talk about that in a sec. On May the 31st, I'm going to be sharing with you some new breakthrough products that we've been working on, again, which are critical to drive the right financial performance for the business, because it allows us to continue to premiumize and increase the margins in our business. More to come on that on May 31, but today let's focus on a quick update on our protein bar and our functional coffee and tea. Some people ask me, do you really have the protein bar? Here I have in my hand is a R&D version of the protein bar. You can see it here. Okay. So we've been doing multiple rounds of our protein bar. I'll show you the inside. It has a beautiful texture and overall mouthfeel on the inside. Okay. We've been really happy with the overall profile, the taste, the amount of protein that we have and getting the balance. We hit a little bit of a challenge because we were using pretty much a sweetener system that's used across the world. This sweetener system utilized an ingredient called erythritol. And about 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, there was some clinical research that demonstrated, it was one trial that demonstrated that people that had more erythritol consumption were more likely to have cardiac challenges. So given this and given the huge spotlight, there was a lot of news on it across the US, we decided to go back to R&D because I don't want to launch a product that's all about better blood flow, where we're making strong cardiovascular health and wellness claims, when there's a little bit of an Achilles heel because of one study. Now, it's one study. There have been multiple other studies which have communicated alternative outcomes, but we decided, because we want to hit the ground running with a product with no actual headwinds, to go back and reformulate the sweetener system. We're now reformulating the sweetener system, and we will have a product ready, we believe, by the end of Q4. Okay? It's a great tasting product as well. So, functional coffee and tea now, with functional coffee and tea now, we added the functional tea, the blood flow green tea, which is all about driving energy through blood flow, as well as detox through the blood flow, removing the toxins in the body. We've added because we feel like it's a critical as part of the portfolio, where we have a decaf coffee, a regular coffee, and the green tea. We've made great progress in actually formulations. In fact, I have here, working with our partner, Joe's Garage, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest co-manufacturing coffee manufacturer of pods in the US, company that has amazing capability in not just in coffee, but also in how to add functional ingredients into coffee. And I'm going to show you now a quick demo. We have the real thing. Justin, a little bit of sizzle here, huh? So I'm going to put the pod in. Let me just grab a glass. So this pod now contains VINIA inside this. So we formulated already with VINIA. This is for the regular version. We'll move on to decaf and green tea shortly. The product, really, it tastes amazing. Let's give it a warming up here. There you go. Can everyone see that? Okay.
I don't have a coffee machine in my office.
The color is beautiful. This is the only Keurig machine in Israel, but there's about, I think, something like 60 million of them in the US. And here you can see a beautiful cup of coffee that's being poured. This is actually a 10 ounce that I'm pouring right now. Okay, I'm going to bring this back. Whoops. Okay. Justin, you're going to have to edit this. Give me a sec. Let's get my camera sorted out here. Okay. So we have here coffee. It's a great tasting coffee. And actually, when you compare it versus the competition, not only will we have the superiority around the claims, because we have obviously the clinical validation as it relates to the blood flow and the impact of the blood flow, but also, and importantly, we have a great taste. And if you look at our competition in this area, they have MCT oil, turmeric, B vitamins, and D3, and we really believe we will have superior functionality as well as a superior taste proposition that we're going after. So more to come on that. The intention is we will launch one of these before Christmas. My aspiration is to be selling this on Amazon and via our website before Christmas. We sell the first protein bars or coffee, and then whatever we don't land up launching in that fourth quarter, we will then launch in the first quarter because we need to focus. Okay. Marketing optimization. The partnership with TBN continues to really deliver for the business. We have the secret sauce, which is around content, as well as what we call 2-minute, 90-second testimonial advertising that we're running right now. We've seen some amazing results coming out of this. And on May the 18th at 9 p.m. Eastern, and put this on your calendars. Those of you who are not TBN viewers, make sure you go to TBN. This is Matthew Crouch, who's the owner of TBN, who was in Israel and came here and did literally a 1-hour show that we filmed here in our factory. You can actually see in the right-hand side some of our smaller bioreactors. We've never showed bioreactors like this on TV. It's going to be an amazing insight into understanding our manufacturing, our factory, and we really believe that this is, we all saw what 7 minutes on Mike Huckabee did, and we're cautiously optimistic that when we see some amazing customer acquisition and sales results coming out of this 1-hour show, primetime TV. We've continued to focus on building the right landing pages to make sure our landing pages are relevant for the audience. And that also leads me to the grassroots athlete strategy that we've been executing with Yo Murphy over here, a top coach, previous player, very successful player, now focusing his efforts in the coaching world. I'm going to play literally a 2.5-minute video which talks about how Yo and his nutritionist are utilizing VINIA as part of giving their athletes that competitive edge.
Joe Murphy, Vice President of Pro Performance, House of Athletes, played in pro sports for 16 years. And now I'm having an opportunity to train, some of the best to ever play. When guys come in, the 97, 98 percentile, we're just trying to get them 1% better. It's something that you have to find the smallest thing sometimes to get the biggest bang. And we know with adding VINIA in, that's going to help us get to that 1%.
When I'm looking at supplements for my clients, whether it is a general population client or an athlete, I'm typically looking at ingredients. We will look at the effectiveness. We'll look at reviews and research that comes along with it. Obviously, for my athletes, we need to make sure that it's sport safe. A lot of supplements, especially over-the-counter supplements, will have additives in them. What drew me to VINIA was the ingredient list. It is just made from red grape powder, no additives that are going to affect the absorption and the effectiveness of it, as well as the solubility and the bioavailability of the nutrients.
VINIA for a little over a year now. I feel better, I feel strong, more consistent. It's helped with the energy, mental and physical. And so, I wanted to give our athletes that same opportunity. Nothing here is transactional for us. Guys that are as gifted and as talented as the guys we get and just physically capable, our work is spent on finding out what they need and then providing.
So the reason we decided to work with VINIA is we are looking for that little bit of an advantage that we can give to our athletes. And my job as the nutritionist is to be able to optimize their performance. And I think working with VINIA was the next best step for us. It is able to dilate the arteries, which is going to increase the blood flow, and that's going to provide better oxygen to our muscles throughout our workout and from a recovery standpoint. And it also is going to remove waste from our muscles a little bit easier as well. The blood flow part of things is super important for our athletes, and it's something that VINIA allowed us to really attack this year.
I think one of the powerful things with VINIA is blood flow is king because of the oxygen through the muscles, through the heart, through the lungs, which helps, with our physical energy, our mental alertness. So in turn, should turn into better performance. So if you're out there and you're an athlete, you're a trainer, you're a coach, you're looking for something that's strong and can give you that edge, help you get that 1%, VINIA is an excellent supplement.
You gotta love that. Blood flow is king, and VINIA gives me that edge. And you know what? We saw that edge with Team VINIA. We had 5 young athletes, young rookies that were going into the draft. And I'm super, super excited that every single one of them found a home. They found a major NFL team to be able to live their dream and live there and build their careers. And VINIA was a critical part of their regimen, giving them that extra edge, driving that blood flow to give them that extra 2% to be able to make the cut amongst so many other athletes. So more to come on these gentlemen, brave gentlemen, but we're really excited that VINIA is part of this journey. And we're going to start to see a lot more of our communication and channeling people into sports-focused landing pages. You can see we have amazing content. We have credibility now. And the way that we're penetrating the sports market is very, very unique. We're going to be doing what I would say, a bottom-up approach through the athletes, through the coaches, and the amount of awareness there is amongst coaches across the US related to heart health and the importance of blood flow. This is just perfect timing for us. We're also going to be coming in from the top with some more firepower related to more famous players who are taking our product, and more to come on that shortly. Lastly, I just want to talk about the referral program. Over the next few weeks, all of our customers are going to be receiving the launch of our referral program, where existing customers can now refer friends to buy VINIA, and they will receive 20 off. Your friend will receive $20 off their first order and the actual existing customer that's doing the referral will receive one free 30-day bottle of VINIA. So we're rewarding our customers, and we know that the best way to drive marketing efficiency is word of mouth recruitment. It's much more efficient. And so this is a big push we're doing. As we mentioned in today's release, we've recruited 25,000 plus customers. They're all heavily loyal, big subscription base, and that's going to multiply very, very quickly with programs like this. Just very quickly, talking about cost management and manufacturing scaling. We are now a couple of things. Firstly, from a supply chain perspective, the second quarter is looking a lot better than the first quarter. Our first quarter was very, very challenging because we depleted majority of our inventory levels in the fourth quarter with the massive run we had towards the end of the year with the amazing results we delivered in the fourth quarter. We depleted a large proportion of the inventory we built up. We've now built up significant more inventory for the second quarter. We have major shows like the Praise Show coming up in May that we're building up inventory as we speak. And we've also addressed a lot of our partner drying programs for the drying of our red grape cells to make sure that we're in solid ground for second and third quarter. And then what happens is in third quarter, we start to bring in our new equipment. You can see there's three pieces of equipment here. The one piece of equipment is a piece of equipment we use to drain the water out of our cells. The second piece below is a piece of equipment where we freeze the cells. And this over here is a mini machine, which we have actually in our facility right now for drying, which is the new disruptive drying technology that we're going to. And literally in about 4 weeks' time, we will receive the monster machine that will allow us to really breathe a lot easier. And then we will have a 4 to 6 validation process until we start to get the machine up and running and working. And this will really give us a lot more oxygen going into fourth quarter. So in addition, obviously, the cost reduction we get as a result of this equipment is significant because we bring a large proportion of our drying in-house. And also we have much better yields, which I'll talk more about in our May 31 meeting. And then importantly, we announced 2 weeks ago that we had hired a COO. This is a critical partner for me to be able to run the business on a daily basis at a strategic level. And we couldn't have recruited a better candidate with amazing experience that's been able to hit the ground running already because she understands our business, because she was part of our company for about 4 years. She left the business. Ilana left the business in early 2014, 2015, and is bringing to us now 7 years of amazing experience as a CEO of a NASDAQ-listed company. And already in the last 2 weeks, we were laughing today that she's been here pretty much 2 weeks. We've seen a significant impact on really changing the critical things that we need to change to be a best-in-class, a world-class manufacturing organization in the biotech space. Before I hand over to Brian, just on my last page on the marketing piece, I want to thank Justin, who's worked like a champion, absolute champion. I've driven him crazy the last 4 weeks on building our new corporate website, which really is starting to articulate and depict and communicate the soul of who we are as a company and our core capabilities and our competitive advantage in a much more articulate way, in a much more visual way. For example, we said to people, we talk to people, we're a biotech company. People come to our website, they have no idea about our technology. So we decided, okay, we're showing people in the video on Praise our smaller bioreactors. And remember, we go from small to medium to these monster bioreactors. So we said, look, we're showing it on TV. Let's put it on our website. We'll put one of the smaller bioreactors on the website. And so we've done that so people can see straight away what kind of a company we are, how do we produce, and you'll start to see a lot more about us talking about how we're a botanical synthesis company and leading the botanical synthesis movement, and more to come on this. More to come on this when we talk on May 31 on how that's going to really dramatically impact the trajectory in a positive way of our business. Okay, I'm going to just do a quick intro to the pharmaceutical profit pillar that we're driving before I hand over to Dr. Brian. And I wanted to share with you first, basically, and Brian's going to actually walk you through this with a number of different case studies. I wanted to kind of take you through our actual strategy as we think about our clinical trials. Firstly, we start with in vitro studies on cells, where we determine the initial biomarkers of efficacy. We develop scientific backing for some of our IP. It's very important as part of our patent strategy. And we also start to develop, from a nutraceutical perspective, the structure function claims. We then move to pilot studies. And in these pilot studies, we're assessing safety, we're confirming serving size and dosage, we may uncover some in vivo biomarker changes. And this is a critical stage for us to really also start to validate what we're seeing with literally thousands of customer reviews. Now, I want to be very clear on this. Today, you will see nearly 2,100 customer reviews. We probably have another 400 reviews, 500 reviews that we're not allowed to put on the website because they are reviews where people are talking about VINIA impacting positively specific indications, major indications, which the FDA would regard as a disease. So therefore, we're not able to publish that in a public way. Obviously, it's important for us, and we learn a lot from this. And many of what Brian's sharing with you now has actually has come from inspiration in many respects and validation from these reviews. But the pilot studies allows us to go into the market and actually work with doctors, with physicians in the right protocols according to FDA guidelines to be able to really validate on a small scale the application of VINIA, or what we call RGC, which is our pharmaceutical name, red grape cells, towards specific indications. This process, anywhere between 6 months to 12 months, we get the results. We obviously want to publish these results in scientific journals, like what we've done for, in the case of cardiovascular health with our VINIA product. And then where appropriate, we will look to launch dietary supplement products, and Brian will take you through a few examples. And if we receive stellar results, we want to continue down the path to go on to larger trials. Many of them will be sponsored by the National Institute of Health, by the DoD, by private foundations, and in many respects also in partnership with other pharmaceutical companies. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is that we're going to be very smart with our spend in this area. And in many cases, we are doing this through grants. And in many cases, we will also be doing this through partnership as we walk through with pharmaceutical. We will then move to a model which would be more of a royalty system model where pharma takes it all the way through stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 trials. It would not be utilizing our capital, but obviously we would be enjoying in the future the royalties should those trials be successful. So that's the broader model. Brian's going to talk you through the in vitro and pilot studies on 4 specific examples. And I'm now going to hand over to, I like to call him Dr. Brian. I like to give him the respect. He wanted to wear a white coat today with Dr. Brian on it, but I convinced him not to. So I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Brian to take you through an exciting actual announcement, which really helps us accelerate a lot of this work. Over to you, Dr. Brian. So I'm going to stop. You want me to stop sharing and you're going to share?
Please, that'll be great.
All right. All yours.
You just have to give me a permission, that's all.
That should help, yes.
There you go. Thank you. And let me know if you're seeing my full slide or if I'm going to have to do similar to what Ilan just did.
Do what? Yeah, it's fine.
There you go.
Oh, great. You got it. You figured it out.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to join you today. There's a lot of exciting stuff. As Ilan shared, I joined a little less than a year ago, but it seems like we've been doing a lot more work. And this is just a little bit of a teaser of everything that we're doing behind the scenes to allow for what Ilan shared on that kind of 4-phase clinical trials program to be successful. We needed to identify a lab that could help us with all the preclinical biomarker research in vitro, and if needed, some of the animal cells and different types of tissue work. And we actually just this week signed off with the University of Arizona and Dr. John Paul Sangiovanni. He's a major expert in botanical phytonutrients and how they actually have responses at the cellular level. And that's going to come in very much needed for all of our studies that we're going to be doing. And I'm going to take you through a little journey. Before we go through these 4 journeys of clinical trials that we're working on right now in different stages, a lot of people often ask, how can you do so many disparate and different things with one set of compounds? And you have to think about the mechanism of action, what it's actually doing at the cellular level. And so when I joined about a year ago, we were almost mainly focused on this particular action, and that was the double action effect of where we're increasing nitric oxide and decreasing ET1, which led to increased dilation of arteries and improving blood flow and subsequent delivery of oxygen and vital nutrients to the human body, so our cells, our tissues, and our organs. And then when I came in, I was thinking, boy, this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I have been doing over 30 years of research on phytonutrients, and I knew the resveratrol and the quercetin and the other components in this amazing red grape cell product had so much more to offer. And so when you think about our red grape cell powder, if you guys and girls in the audience today get it at home, you might see just a red powder, but inside of it, believe it or not, I was just at a conference 2 weeks ago, somebody presented on red grapes that there's over 100 different phytonutrients, these chemicals that plants make that help us with disease kind of help solutions, but also health promotion. And then beyond our piceid resveratrol, which you've heard a lot about in some of our prior quarterly updates, we have quercetin, catechins, tannins, anthocyanins, just to name a few. And all of these in the literature have shown tremendous capabilities, both in cell culture, in animal models, and even sometimes in human studies to really be amazing when it comes to health promotion. And the way I think about this is if we were to only produce a product that had just one of those components, it would be like this amazing symphony here. And imagine if you had a symphony, you got rid of the strings or the percussion section. It wouldn't sound very good at all. And so what our red grape cell product has in the future, olive and pomegranate products will have is an entire panoply, the entire matrix of these phytonutrients from plants that work together, and they all assemble like a puzzle piece to do what nature had intended. And beyond now looking at blood flow, this may be new for a lot of people, might be seeing some of this for the first time today. There are many different mechanisms of actions. And again, these have been researched over the decades looking at compounds that are in our final product like resveratrol and quercetin. And what we know is that on the left side here, we know there's some antimicrobial effects. And I'll come back in the future and talk about how this could be, pretty exciting for some of the work we're planning on doing. But then here on the right side are some of the most important pathways at the cellular level that when resveratrol enters a cell, it can actually down-regulate one of the major drivers of inflammation at the cellular level. And without having to be a molecular biologist or doctor, if you look at a lot of the programs on TV and the news, you know that chronic unabated inflammation can lead to symptoms and ultimately can lead to our demise, and it can hurt our cells, our tissues. So we're able to modulate, we're able to bring down that chronic inflammation and keep it in check, so to speak. And then the right side is an absolutely amazing pathway, something that I've been researching now for 3 decades. And this is actually detoxification pathway. You're going to see by the end of my talk that we're day in and day out, every second of our lives, breathing in or drinking or exposed to certain environmental toxins you don't even see and know about. And this pathway here, it's in all of our cells. We're able to upregulate dozens of protective antioxidative and detoxification genes and proteins through resveratrol, quercetin, and some of those other phytonutrients that I showed on the page before. And so let's take a look really quick before I dive into these studies, because there's a whole nother area that Ilan and I are really excited to share with you today. This is looking at the top 10 highest grossing drugs in the United States today. And what you can see is this is called Imprecision Medicine. This is something that's published. It's out in the public domain, and it's based on data. And it shows how many people need to take one of these top 10 blockbuster drugs to get one really true efficacious response. And it's anywhere from 4.1 to 25%. I can tell you that in the dietary supplement world, if we were to be this, I guess, unsuccessful, it wouldn't bode too well for our future. So and again, let's just look at an example, Nexium heartburn, right? When the second highest grossing OTC product in the United States, it takes 25 people to really have one to have an efficacious outcome. And that's just it's amazing. You think about the cost, not only to our country, you know, insurance, and then you also think about the side effects that you can get. So what we know, and based on that very first tip of the iceberg molecular mechanism of action, the blood flow, we know that with RGC's ability to enhance arterial, venous, and capillary dilation, we can make pharmaceuticals better, more efficacious. And we can do this because when we dilate the arteries, we're able to get these compounds to the far reaches of our cells, our organs, and our tissues. And so one of the things we're going to be doing in the months and years ahead is working with pharma on combining our RGC product along with some of their actives and seeing if we might be able to actually allow them to decrease their actives because they're not relying now on diffusion. We're actually directly transporting it to the deepest reaches of the tissues. And this may bring down cost, perhaps. It will hopefully increase efficacy. We also think we may have a significant impact on lowering the side effect profile. So this is some of the exciting adjunct API work that we're going to be doing in the months and years ahead. And we'll give you updates along the way. But what I'm really here to kind of tease you and show you about, more than a tease, I'm going to actually walk you through 4 amazing journeys so far that we've been doing in the past year. The first 2 you've already heard from Ilan and others in past quarterly updates. And this is actually the fact that we already have a cardiovascular and type 2 diabetes human clinical trial that's fully done. It's been published. It's in PubMed.com if you search it up. And then I'm going to walk you through 4 journeys today: skin health, eye health promotion, glioblastoma, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And before I do this, I'm just going to share behind the scenes. You see, like, there's one section that says preclinical, and it looks like it's really easy. But behind the scenes, there's literally 50 different steps, and that's why it can sometimes take 6 months to 2 years. There's a lot of planning that goes on to not just understanding and finding some of these research groups that are interested in using our product, but also developing a draft protocol, working with the Food and Drug Administration, working on genomics and biomarkers that we're going to target. And then we have to get something called Institutional Review Board approval. This actually allows for the patients and participants in our studies to be safe. So it's kind of like a review body that looks at all the different nuances of our study, so we're not doing any harm to these participants. Then we'll have study launch and study completion. And we're going to show you various studies today, and they're in different phases. Some have already launched, actually, and we'll show you some real data. And then these are the indications I'm going to be talking about. And this is the incidence rates. And it's pretty amazing to think about this. So when we talk about skin health, and we're mostly thinking about atopic dermatitis, psoriasis, eczema, 16.8% of the US population, almost 50 million people in the US, have some type of skin health condition. Multiple sclerosis, we talked about, we're looking at eye health, but in those people who have multiple sclerosis, there's 1 million cases, so it's low, 0.3% of the population. But I can tell you, every single one of those 1 million people, what they dread the most is the unfortunate impact that eye health issues can have. And this is called optic neuritis. They can literally wake up and be blind in one or both eyes. I'll tell you a little bit about how that happens. We're also going to be talking about a study we're doing with glioblastoma. It doesn't look like there's many here, 10,560. This is a really dramatic and deadly disease. And it's also known as an orphan disease, and we'll tell you why that's an advantage for us in a little while. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with the shortest amount that we've done so far. And this is actually using our new olive product, and we're actually starting the process of getting a study up and running on non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and fatty liver disease. And you'll see this affects 26%, amazingly, of the U.S. population. I'll show you some statistics, 90 million Americans. It's amazing. And so breaking news, when we look at skin health now, toxin-related illnesses are on the rise. And so I had the privilege of going in January, the end of January, to both the Philippines and South Korea to set up some studies and actually to start selling our VINIA in country. And while I was there, it turns out that in November, December, and January, in both of those countries, they have the most polluted air than any other time in the entire year. And why this is because if you look at this chart, both China and India, believe it or not, every week are launching and opening new coal-fired energy plants. That's great for the population. They get extra energy in these countries, but what's bad for the rest of the world is the pollution that this entails and this gives off. And that includes benzene, acrolein, crotonaldehyde, mercury, just to name a few. And here's South Korea, where I was in January. This is China. India's right here. And because of the trade winds, all that pollution goes west to east, and it goes right over South Korea into Japan. We can even measure mercury in some of this benzene from Asia in the Pacific coast. So if you run in the mornings, if you're calling in from California, I got married in Southern California in the marine layer. People have tested it. It actually has mercury coming from those coal plants. But you can imagine how much there is in South Korea. So the main paradigm and the main kind of schema we're going to see throughout this presentation is that environmental toxicants and exposures. And in the case of skin, it can even be some of the components that are in our food, and even stress itself can actually have an impact on our whole body and our cells and our tissues. This leads to chronic inflammation It can upregulate T cells, B cells, macrophages. These are members of our immune system. And in the case of skin and some of these irritants that can land on the skin from air pollution, you can get eczema, psoriasis, and atopic dermatitis. And you can look in PubMed if you want to see some of these incredible studies that have been done that show the connection here between air pollution and skin disorders. And again, I had the privilege in January of going, and actually I spent a whole week with a dear friend of mine, an integrative functional medicine doctor, Dr. Ji-Hoon Kim. This is his wife and his family. And the amazing thing about Dr. Kim that you may or may not know is he was the first one to introduce VINIA into South Korea. And he first started it with his family and friends, and they started using it in different ways. And what he was finding was a lot of skin health promotion responses. Ilana told you there's about 450 responses we can't tell you about. Ji-Hoon was getting responses all over the place, but he was focusing on the skin health promotion. And so what we decided to do when we're there together is let's put together a little what we call proof of concept field study. And so with Ji-Hoon, Dr. Kim's help, we actually went online and we recruited 12 participants from online communities, and they had various skin complaints, including eczema, rosacea, dermatitis. We gave them RGC, or our VINIA product, 2 bottles each. Pictures were taken. We asked them, this was done at home. We asked them to take a pre-VINIA and then an after or during the course of VINIA used pictures. And then 1 capsule a day was given in the AM to each of these people for the first 14 days. And then we asked them to increase the dosing to 2 capsules a day for the additional 3 weeks or 21 days. And I'm going to show you different stages of these trials. The next time, if I can come back, I can show you the completion, but I'm going to show you some amazing pictures. So this first person is a woman who had rosacea. And what this means is she would get really heated skin, facial redness, and this would most likely and most importantly happen when she worked out. If she did a morning workout, she would have redness in her face for days afterwards. She started taking our product. This is 5 weeks at the completion. You can see it's a lot less redness. She said she no longer had facial redness, and the best part is post-workouts, it goes away completely. So an amazing result. And for those who aren't maybe so knowledgeable about how skin works, when you see redness and, sometimes you see irritation, that's the immune cells are getting to the surface of the dermis. They're releasing these inflammatory cytokines and chemokines, and that's what's causing the redness and the irritability of our skin. Here's a gentleman who actually had pretty severe dermatitis. You can see the pustules and the lesions, and he's taking we'll talk about one of the major biologics that are on commercials here all the time in the US and also down in New Zealand. And this is just 3 weeks in. So he's only 1 week now on 2 of our VINIA per day, and you can see a lot of the lesions are gone, the redness is gone, that inflammation. And he actually told us that it wasn't as painful. At night, he would wake up sometimes, he didn't have any of the pain and itching that he had suffered before. And the amazing thing is this is 3 weeks in. Some of these people have suffered with some of these conditions for decades of their lives, and we're making a big impact with this product taken orally. Here's another person who had, again, a type of dermatitis. You can see little pustules, it's redness and, swelling, irritation. 1 week in, it's a dramatic difference. And here's 4 weeks out, almost no redness anymore. And they're still continuing to take the product, and we'll have the end of the results shortly. And then this is a great one. This is a person with, again, generalized dermatitis. You can see the redness, the pimples. Look at 4 weeks in. She was a 34-year-old female. She had itching, allergies, pimples. Afterwards, she had no itch, and this is amazing. She had less allergic symptoms. This is systemically, not just of her skin, but even with her lung capacity as well. So it helped with generalized allergies. This is a pretty important result. And this is a quote directly from her. I felt as though my face had received a facial right after the first few days of taking RGC or VINIA. And then again, I hinted a little bit that some of these patients or participants were already taking some of these new breakthrough biologics, and you see them on the commercials here in the US all the time. And these are quite expensive. I mean, some of the costs are $38,000 all the way up to $65,000 per year, covered largely by the insurance companies. But when you look at the side effects, it's everything to do with skin, stinging, burning, itching, blistering, peeling, swelling, oozing. And again, I question this is for a skin condition, but yet it can sometimes make it worse with the side effects. Most importantly, though, these side effects are really severe and nothing to joke about. The FDA recently required some of these new biologics to have a black box warning because of the risk of increased lymphoma and other cancers. So these are pretty serious agents, very expensive with a pretty, significant side effect profile. And so what we're doing, I just returned 2 weeks ago. I was down in Southern Florida where we're setting up a study with the Skin Research Institute. We're going to be able to look at patients and participants and look at some amazing quantitative measurements, non-invasive. And again, in the months and quarters ahead, I'll be able to come back and hopefully update you on this study. So that was the first journey on skin health.
Hey, Brian,
go ahead, Justin.
Can we knock off a couple of questions right now? So
absolutely.
How does this sort of initial investigative not study. How does this fit into the actual clinical process? So people reporting their skin's getting better, and then you do an initiative like this. Where does that fit on the steps that you showed?
Yeah, no. So we have to be, really good stewards with the limited amounts of resources that we have, both time, and material and even finances. So we do those proof of concept field studies just to give us kind of a good indication that, based on these molecular mechanisms of actions, while they look good on paper, we really need to test this in the true setting. In those field studies, as you see, we're looking at like dosing 1 and 2. Is there any benefit to increasing? And then we can also look at some of the side effect profiles. So it really gives us a snapshot, kind of an early indication, foreshadowing of if we do take this to a real clinical trial that will be regulated by the FDA, very nicely, sometimes randomized and stuff, that it's going to have a good indication. So that's what we do those field studies for.
You're on mute, Justin.
Sorry, that's excellent. Yeah, proof of concept. That's perfect. Thank you.
Was there another one or?
No, it's great. That's great. No, that covers it. Yep.
Okay, perfect. And now I'm going to give you another journey, and this is optic neuritis. And so again, just like I showed you this schema earlier for skin health, the same thing, environmental pollution, some of these kind of, preservatives and some of these chemicals in our food, and even stress can have a major impact. It causes chronic inflammation. In the case of eye health, this is actually dealing with patients who have multiple sclerosis. This is an autoimmune disease. And it's funny because when I got trained in what I call Western medicine, we learned all about symptoms and how to treat them with drugs. But what I've done now in the 30 years since is I've actually looked at the root causes. And these are the root causes. Even stress can cause autoimmunity. And what happens in the case of multiple sclerosis is our immune cells are overactivated, and they'll actually go, I don't know if most of you remember from high school biology. If not, no worries. There's a long channel or long chain here where the signals start in the top of the neurons and they go all the way down, sometimes to our extremities. And these are actually insulated by Schwann cells. And what we know is when immune cells called microglia in the brain and the spinal cord are overactivated because of these environmental stimulants, they actually start attacking the Schwann cells. So they attack the insulation, and our signals can kind of get awry. And what happens, the scariest part of multiple sclerosis is people can wake up blind because of the optic nerve having the Schwann cells actually be destroyed. This is actually a true MRI, slice transverse section of the brain. These white lesions are active lesions of multiple sclerosis, and that would be here where these Schwann cells are being degraded and these neurons are actually being destroyed. So it's a really major issue. And so again, I go into PubMed, you can see there's many publications looking at the connection now between the very root causes, what's really driving multiple sclerosis. And for a scientist, physician scientists like me, this is one of the most amazing schematics. The sad thing is this is decades worth of work and lots of labs around the world. And what we see is we can breathe in airborne pollution. It goes into our lungs where it upregulates macrophages and T cells of our immune system, gets into our lymph nodes where it's further activating these immune cells, crosses the blood-brain barrier, upregulates these microglia immune cells in our brain, and then causing destruction of our nerves. This is a beautiful image that literally shows the root causes of multiple sclerosis. The amazing thing is our product, through mechanism of action, we can actually get to the root causes. So this is one of the reasons we're doing this study. And then this is a little personal as well. This is my community. If you're ever out in Maryland, I live in Western Maryland. It's very beautiful, lots of agriculture. The problem is around the corner from me, within 5 houses, there's 2 people that have been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in the recent years. And what's amazing is when we think about where we live, we're on old farmland. And so for decades, if not over 100 years, these fields have been sprayed and treated with pesticides and herbicides. And some of these are called POPs, persistent organic pollutants. And it takes years, and sometimes they never go away. And they can get into our groundwater, they can get into the soil, they're in the air. And when they make contact with us, they can have major problems. And again, and you'll see this a lot too, where people in rural areas and agricultural lands have increased risk of cancer, MS, autoimmune disease, and lots of other chronic conditions because of these chemicals that are ever present in our environment. Here's another region I'm going to tell you the story about a friend of mine who lives down in Colombia, South America. This is a country where agriculture is a very big part of their daily life. All throughout the day and night, there's planes that come and spray all the fields. And if you're nearby, unfortunately, you're kind of one of these unintended person who gets some of these chemicals onto them or close by and ends up in their drinking water. And so this is a friend of mine. She's 28 years old. She was recently diagnosed 3 months ago with multiple sclerosis. This is after having several bouts of optic neuritis. It's incredibly scary and taxing. She would wake up blind in one or both eyes. And she would go to the hospital where it would give her high doses of glucocorticosteroids and then transfer over to steroid pills. This is suppressing the immune system. But now she's actually on one of these new biologic therapies that are standard of care now for multiple sclerosis. And what they do is they suppress the immune system as well. So when a multiple sclerosis patient gets one of these flares, they then get something that suppresses their immune system even further. And that can be quite dangerous when you think about COVID and all these infectious diseases that are out there. So one of my, one of the days, I found out about what she was going through, and she was very interested in the VINIA. And when I joined this company, I said, why don't you give it a try? It might help with some of the chronic inflammation. And I said, just go really low and see what happens. Give me a call, keep up every day. And so she did this, just, again, kind of like a proof of concept field study. She started taking it 2 months ago. She used to have an entire light show at night, like flashes all the time. It would keep her up. It was really tough to go to sleep. They're 99% gone now. No more optic neuritis flares. She's had other types of flares, some issues with her legs and her extremities, but no more of those. She had 3 bouts of that optic neuritis. That hasn't happened anymore. And I told you, stress can be a major driver of autoimmune disease and multiple sclerosis. She's been under tremendous amounts of stress in the company she's currently working for. There's been dozens of layoffs. So stress hasn't gotten any better. It's gotten worse. And again, this is protecting her from these optic neuritis flares. And because of this and the mechanism of actions, one of my colleagues from the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine and Hospital, Dr. Daniel Becker, a neurologist, and also a director here of the International Neurological Institute in Towson, Maryland. He and I have been working together on a protocol, and I'm happy to say we're very much along. We have just a few more chapters to get done, and then we're going to actually get this reviewed and hopefully launch. And this is going to be our first study looking at eye health and structure function manifestations using participants that have multiple sclerosis. We're using amazing technology. BioHarvest is at the forefront of the newest technology. We're using one of these new technologies that are right now starting to show up all around the world. It's called optical coherence tomography. Non-invasive, a participant looks into this machine and it actually looks at all the different layers of cells. We can look at immune infiltrates. We can look at pus and serous fluid. This is actually the images that you get. This would be where the optic nerves comes through, some of the arteries, and then it quantitates based on a normalized database of tens of millions of people all over the world. It looks at 16 different sectors, and if there's any red sectors, that means there's damage from optic neuritis or in the eye. And we're going to start off with the baseline assessment, and then we're going to give VINIA for 6 to 9 months and see if we can actually turn those reds into greens and stave off optic neuritis and look at some of the structure function. We're going to be looking at increasing some of these biomarkers of inflammation and detoxification in these actual participants. Again, I told you that the cost of these biologics, just like skin, can be quite impressive, $60,000 to $85,000 per year. And again, you have to worry about immunosuppression and things like COVID and other infectious diseases. And so beyond, this is important that Ilan walked us through this clinical trials program that we're doing. So when we're done this pilot study looking at structure function impacts for people with optic neuritis, we're going to have a kind of a detour here. We're actually going to go and develop and reach out for funding with a colleague of mine and do something on the nutraceutical side as well. So one of our colleagues has actually ran 2 of the largest NIH studies for eye health and nutraceuticals, AREDS 1 and 2, and we're going to bring them back and we're going to develop a study and reach out for funding, hopefully from the National Institute of Health, to look at eye health, promotion. And this would be a nutraceutical. And then we'll still take the other MS and optic neuritis and hopefully work and team up with pharma, as Ilan had described a couple slides prior. So again, this is where we can actually do 2 different products, a nutraceutical on the left side, and then on the right-hand side of our strategy piece, we're going to actually look at a drug or API. The third story or journey I'm going to take you through is glioblastoma. Glioblastoma, while there's not a lot of incidence in the United States, the incidence when you do get it, it's quite devastating. So there's 5-year survival rates of less than 2%. The median survival rate is 2.5 months. When it happens to kids, it's absolutely devastating. When it happens to anyone, it is. It has an orphan drug status, and I shared that about 10 minutes ago. And what this means is that the U.S. government and other entities actually can give us tax credits and other incentives to work on this particular, area of research. And the reason for that is a lot of the big biotech and pharma companies don't like to focus on areas where there's such a small population. But we actually think this is the best thing to focus on. And we think we can also, as you'll see towards the end, take this further to other different types of populations as well. And then this has a personal story as well. This is my college roommate. I went to a school, University of Maryland, Baltimore County. My roommate, Bernie, lost his own father to glioblastoma. It's absolutely horrendous watching somebody suffer through this. And then these are both my daughters. They're older now, but when they were in high school, one still is. They actually played soccer for Coach Craig here. And I just tried to help his brother, Daryl. He just passed away, sadly, 2 months ago from glioblastoma. It was horrible to watch this. And the problem is there's lots of clinical trials now that are out there for some of these new immunotherapies you might see commercials for glioblastoma. But you have to first fail frontline therapy. And poor Daryl started on a frontline therapy. He only made it 2 months out, and then he passed away. So he never had a chance to get into the newer clinical trials. And it's just a real shame. So what is that frontline therapy? It's actually a combination of chemotherapy and whole cranial radiation. Again, the median survival time is 2.5 months. And I can tell you, I got my training in pediatric oncology, cancer with kids. This is not a good quality of life for the last 2.5 months. And the initial cost for treatment right now in 2023 here in the US for those last 2.5 months, it's $268,000 to $450,000. It's a huge cost. And again, a lot of these trials aren't available to people because they never make it out of this initial frontline therapy. So why would we ever think that red grape cells or resveratrol has any type of impact when it comes to glioblastoma? Well, there's other research that have looked at resveratrol, the compound, not VINIA, but resveratrol for decades prior. And if you go into PubMed, you can see there's over 89 publications peer-reviewed looking at this. And when it comes to brain cancer and red grape cells, specifically resveratrol, oral administration in preclinical rodent models has shown that it can actually prolong survival. And what they do, they take actual tumor tissue and they implant it into rodents, and then they treat with the same types of chemoradiation we get, but at lower doses. When we look at cells, this is a cell line looking at glioblastoma. You can actually see a decrease in the growth, and you can actually kill what are known as glioblastoma stem cells. These are the most aggressive and resistant types of cells and tumors to therapies. And we can actually show in vitro that resveratrol can actually kill off these stem cells. And lastly, when you combine resveratrol, remember we talked about we could be adjunct for the pharma world. When you combine resveratrol with the chemo and radiation, they do better. These rodents do better in terms of survival and overall, tumor aggressiveness. So again, we think that we're helping efficacy, helping get these products deeper into the tumor itself that are closed off sometimes because of vasoconstriction. So again, the paradigm I showed you, the scheme, environmental toxin exposures, in this case, inflammation, and then this can lead to full-fledged glioblastoma. How do we know this is true? Not that far from here, about a 4 or 5 hour plane ride is Alberta, Canada. And if you ever want to look at this, go to Google Maps. It's quite fascinating to zoom in. These are the Alberta tar sands. It's quite tremendous, the impact it has on our environment and planet Earth. But for workers and people who live in these areas, it can be quite devastating. All the pollution that happens because of this industry, there's a lot of neurodevelopmental issues. There's a lot of cancers like glioblastoma. How do we know this? A dear friend of mine, Dr. Jerome Yeager, and his colleague here at University of Alberta, not that far from the coal sands. This is Dr. Jason Dyke. He's been working for decades on resveratrol in preclinical models. And they actually have already started a few months ago using our exact red grape cell product, VINIA, using the powders now in vitro in cell lines. And then we're going to actually translate it to animal models as well. And we really have been developing a dream team globally. We have international research teams, both laboratory researchers and real treating doctors in University of Alberta, here in the US, Israel, Australia, and even the Philippines, where it was a few months ago. So we're going to have a multi-center global study. And this is going to be a few years in the making, and we'll keep you updated in the months and years ahead. And again, why would we work on this? Not only is it an orphan disease, so some of our funding that it costs to do this might actually be offset by grants from the US government, but the goal is to be able to apply this to most, if not all, cancers. My background was in prostate, colon, breast cancer research, and I have a lot of colleagues who are working that are interested in teaming up with us, doing some of those adjunct studies in the future. Lastly,
Brian, I think it's also important just for people to understand that in the glioblastoma study, Dr. Jerome and his team, the funding is coming from their side, and really for us, we're just providing the VINIA material. So it's an amazing learning opportunity for us. This is going to be funded by these institutions, as well as potentially some other private funding that will come as part of this. But from our side, obviously, it's our knowledge and capability in the context of Dr. Brian, but also importantly, providing our VINIA material. And it's just a critical learning for us as we look and understand the impact of our unique composition in the cancer cell line and cancer space.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ilan. And I only have about 4 more minutes left, and then we love to take some questions. I'm glad you mentioned that, Ilan, because this isn't salesmanship at all, but a lot of people have asked, why is it that those researchers have been studying resveratrol in the lab for other decades? Why didn't they take it to humans? And the real reason is because there was not the best product available out there in the market. With our bioreactor technology, we're able to consistently deliver the same amounts of resveratrol and some of these other phytonutrients, lot to lot to lot. And that's exactly what researchers are looking for. I did research for over 20 years of my life. I can tell you nothing's worse than studying a botanical, trying to get it again 6 months later. It just doesn't work. It's because it has different levels of these phytonutrients. We're able to lock it in and give you consistency. And that's why it's a magnet actually for all these research groups around the world who have always been stuck in the rodent model and haven't yet been able to translate it into human. I'm telling you, we're going to have a lot more of these opportunities when we launch our olive and also our pomegranate products as well. So let me wrap it up now with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Again, just like all these others, the main paradigm or schema is we have these environmental toxicants. Remember, the environment includes our diet as well. So both pollution and the food we eat leads to chronic inflammation. And when it comes to liver, it can actually lead to fatty deposit in our liver and inflammatory infiltrates. What we know or don't know about the liver is that, for those who may not know, the liver's main responsibility is to detoxify both environmental insults and some of the chemicals that we make daily at the cell level. And so they're called hepatocytes and they get replaced by inflammation, and then the liver can't do its job and we get very sick. This is actually, again, a published article that shows you can breathe in air pollution and it leads to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And again, it's multifaceted: genetics, our diet, and air pollution. This is actually, I told you about now 18 minutes ago, 90 million Americans currently have this pre-diabetes state. It's called fatty liver. You don't even know it. If you took an ultrasound, a little bit of jelly, we call it jelly on the belly, you take an ultrasound, you can actually see fat deposits in your liver. 90 million Americans have this. Right now in 2023, May of 2023, the FDA has no approved product to help stem the tide. It's just literally diet and exercise. And that's really hard. When I was on the wards, it's impossible sometimes to get people to, they want a prescription. They don't want to be told, you got to get in the gym, 5 days a week, or you got to change your diet. They just want to take a product. It's just how it is. But if left unchecked, you can see all the way down this paradigm, it will actually turn up to give us 200 to 500,000 primary liver cancers in the next couple of years, which is a staggering amount. And the only way to really treat this is liver transplantation prior or chemo and radiation. So we have a major problem here brewing. And again, as I shared, as of May this year, there's no specific approved efficacious treatment for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. There are things that doctors certainly try. I have Band-Aids here because they're nothing more than Band-Aids, quick fixes here. We have insulin sensitizers that control blood sugar. We have metformin, statins to lower lipid levels. There's even some supplements, vitamin E and milk thistle. But again, nothing has proven efficacious to date. And look at the huge amount of side effects. We're not even reversing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. We're just kind of giving a Band-Aid, and we have here a pretty tremendous, significant amounts of side effect potential with what's being given today. What we know is that our olive product, and you might have, if you guys remember when Yolki was on a couple of quarter updates ago, we were talking a little bit about this. It's actually a powerhouse of polyphenols and phytonutrients, and they all work together like those puzzle pieces, just like our red grape cell powder. In synergistic potential, we have things like oleuropein, verbascicide. The easiest way to describe what they do at the cellular level, they're antioxidants and detoxifiers. They get rid of all of this damage that can be done at the cellular level. And believe it or not, we're actually, as soon as we have this product, we're already working. We've identified a site in Northern Virginia, a colleague of mine who's an integrative functional medicine doctor. He actually treats using the Mediterranean diet and supplements based on that. So grapes and olives and others, but nothing to the degree of ours. That's consistent lot to lot with all of these phytonutrients. So we're actually going to be doing, just like we talked about earlier, this proof of concept field study. So hopefully, I didn't just tease you. I walked you through some of these 4 journeys, and now I'm going to pass it back off to Ilan. He's going to finish up this presentation, and then I'm going to answer a couple questions. So thank you so much for the time today, and can't wait to come back and give you further updates.
Thanks, Brian.
Ilan, I'm going to stop sharing and get you back on.
So ladies and gentlemen, I really hope that that you've been able to get a good understanding of all the work we're doing on the right-hand side pillar, as we look to leverage the power of our technology in the adjunct and API area. It's certainly, very exciting. And, obviously, the company that we're all part of, this movement of change, we are, it's pretty unique because we have a unique business model whereby we're able to use our nutraceutical business, which is the machine that we're building, with highly differentiated products, going into multiple occasions, multiple different need states. As we look at, for example, VINIA, going into functional coffees and teas, going to protein bars, and you'll see more that we're going to share on the May 31 presentation, combined then with layering on olive cells and pomegranate cells and future pipeline exciting opportunities, we're going to able to grow massively our revenue. We talked about 3 times our revenue this year. And, as you look at 24 and 25, without, giving future guidance, there are obviously significant increase, like a hockey stick increase that we're going to be driving for the business. And this is going to really, at the end of the day, allow us with this scale and the focus on marketing efficiency and driving productivity by building a best-in-class manufacturing organization that's at cost leadership quality leadership is going to allow us to break even very quickly and then start to really reap the benefits of our hard work as we continue to scale the business, leveraging the power of our strategy to really build an aspiration of building a multi-billion-dollar biotech company. So, I hope today is giving you a good understanding on the initiatives that we're driving in the last few months and moving forward in the next couple of months on the marketing side. It's been a good update. And then obviously helping you understand the methodical process we're working through as it relates to building our pharmaceutical pillar, and then giving you a little bit of detail on each of the key areas that we're focusing on as we start to leverage the power of our red grape cell in this area. So I'm going to stop now, Justin, and we can go straight to Q&As.
Yeah, I knew if we brought Brian in here, there'd be some questions that I don't even know what they mean. But I'm going to honor. So, Ilan, right now it's just at 12:15. Do we have 20 minutes for Q&A?
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, no problem.
Okay. Yeah, let's go. Sure.
So we have 95% of people have stayed with us. No problems.
That's excellent.
Bring on the questions.
Bring on the questions. I'll honor the first one. Pete's asking status of VINIA as vegan.
Yeah, VINIA is vegan. So we actually, as of January, we initially had we had an allergen that we declared related to milk, and we did a lot of hard work that was driven by an ingredient that we use in order to feed the cells. We reformulated, and basically now, as of January, VINIA is vegan. There are no allergens. Super important for us. We did a lot of R&D in that area. So those vegans out there, you can be rest assured that your VINIA now is vegan. It has no allergens, and we're super proud of that.
And how about kosher?
Okay, so this is an interesting question. VINIA in Israel is kosher. Okay, it has all the stamps and everything. VINIA in the US, as it relates to the product, it goes through the same process and channels as VINIA in Israel. So it has all the kosher requirements. We are just transitioning in the next few months. For those, as people know, probably who are our customers, when you buy VINIA, specifically the 3-month, you get a 60 and a 30. And we did that because initially when we launched, we weren't sure what the pack mix was going to be. But now that literally 85% of our business is subscription, and of that, more than 75% are literally 3-month orders. So now we're going to be moving, Justin, in the future to a 90 because it's more cost efficient. It's part of our cost savings. It's also better for the environment because we're utilizing less bottles. It's lighter to ship. So it ticks all the boxes. And when we move into that transition, we will get the required kosher certification, i.e. it will have the required stamp that is required of the highest kosher authority. So that'll probably be in the next 2-3 months, depending on everybody has different levels of kosherness, right? We will have the required stamp of the highest authority as it relates to the US market.
Okay. You did put up a picture of olives at the end. So a bunch of questions about when coffee and the bars might be ready. You said Q4 target, Q4, Q1 for both.
So yeah, let's talk coffee and the bars. As I said, the aspiration is we want to go big with one of these launches pre-Christmas. Pre-Christmas is going into the new year. We have to be focused. I mean, right now we're just trying to keep up with VINIA demand, with our regular VINIA capsule demand. Right. So, as part of building up and getting ready, we want to be focused on a launch. You can't launch 2 products at the same time. We're driving from a commercialization perspective, both of them really hard with our different partners that are helping us with the R&D as it relates to the protein bar and the coffee. As I said, we will go big with one of them pre-Christmas. And then the one that we decide not to go with, we will then roll out probably 2 to 3 months later, once we have some more oxygen to be able to, just from people resources, to be able to focus and drive the right kind of marketing programs. So that's the plan. And what's good is we've got 2 horses in this race, right? And we just got to choose which horse we want to go with, come the end of the year.
Is there any chance that investors or VINIA customers might be involved in some sort of pre-launch for either of them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have some interesting ideas. specifically for our customers, trial packs, opportunities to be able to get some, trial packs for your family, for your friends. So we've got some really good ideas, and these are very, very efficient because, for example, and we may have a program where when you get your 3-month subscription, you get 2 bars, or you'll get like a 6-pack of pods free so that you can trial the product. Might give them an early bird trial product because they are our customers. So there's a whole bunch of good ideas in that area. And it works because we know you're going to give it to your friends and say, hey, look what VINIA is doing now. It's not just in a capsule. When you get up in the morning and you have your coffee, you can have your VINIA at the same time. So it's a win-win.
Cool. A lot of questions. You did show the olives in relation to the fatty liver investigation. Any other updates on olives or pomegranate cells?
So olive timing is actually looking good. The team are making amazing progress. We have a dedicated team that are working on the olive cells scale up. We would look to launch this in the early part of next year. So half one. Again, we got to look at how we land the aeroplanes because the organization cannot do everything at once. Okay, focus is critical. And when I say that, you can't be launching coffee and then trying to launch olives and protein bar at the same time. So we just have to figure out the sequencing. But the intention is actually to be in a position that we're growing in large-scale bioreactors by 4th quarter. That's what we're trying to do. Industrial scale bioreactors by 4th quarter. And that also, we have to sequence this with the clinical trials that we're doing because when we hit the market, we want to hit the market with as much claims as we can with the validation that we have, with the work that Brian's doing. So there's a big push in that area. And so, basically, I would feel that this time next year, we will be getting ready in the space for olives in the marketplace.
Thank you. I might suggest we've got a lot of technical questions for Brian. Maybe we should have like a Q&A event that's just that.
I would love it. If that's possible. Yeah, let's
just a lot of people. So Dr. Peters asking if we've looked at migraines at all.
Dr. Peters asking some very good questions. I just
yeah.
And maybe something we also need to take offline. Some of those questions. We have to also be very, very careful just as it relates to some of the intellectual property and things that we're doing.
Yeah. Lots of great questions. Sorry, I'll keep flying. The one question that came in right away when you're talking coffee, how does the dosage of the bar or the coffee maybe compared to a capsule of VINIA?
Wow, great question, whoever asked that. So this is really the big challenge and something that our R&D team are doing some very good work in, and we have a lot of experience. So the key thing is, for example, in the coffee, I'll just use one of our pods here. In the coffee, basically, what's critical and what makes VINIA so good is when you're putting VINIA inside a protein bar and or inside coffee, you have to make sure that when that hits the consumer, and in the case of coffee, it's more complex because you're putting it in the actual machine and it's going through heat and a whole process to actually brew the coffee. We have to make sure that the perceived resveratrol recovery is exactly the same, equivalent to 1 capsule. And that's important for us based on our claims that we make and structure function claims and the efficacy. So we've done a ton of work on recovery with coffee and recovery with the protein bars. So what happens is when these samples that I ate the sample already, I was so hungry, but the sample that I showed you earlier, that's as soon as we get the sample, it goes through our R&D and we're able to do the appropriate testing to see what the resveratrol recovery is. And we have to make sure that there's 6 milligrams of resveratrol that's recovered in every single protein bar. And similarly in every single coffee pod. So in the case of coffee, we have a very high recovery. Same with the protein bar, but sometimes, Justin, we may put a little bit more resveratrol in, a little bit more of our piceid in, if the recovery is, say, 90%, we might put a little bit more in. And also, with our new technology, and this is where the technology intersects with the new product development, with our new technology, we are actually, through the new drying, we're able to get higher high seed resveratrol levels, which is a game changer for us, because that also drives cost efficiency. And it also, at the end of the day, the efficacy is driven off 6 milligrams. So if I need only 300 milligrams of red grape cells to be able to deliver 6 milligrams, then it's a win-win. Consumer gets what they need, and we can do it more efficiently.
Great. Yeah, so you just brought up, there were questions when you showed the dryer technology. So people were asking, I think it was the mega dryer will be online for Q3.
So the mega dryer, if you want to call it that, I think realistically, the end of Q3, it'll start pumping. We've got to go through, obviously, a validation. We have a validation, actually, the first validation in Germany coming up in a week's time. There'll be one more validation, and then they ship it. And then they ship it to Israel. We have to install it and do some final validation with all the other upstream equipment, and then we're ready to rock and roll. But what's important is that we have secured some very good partners that now have a great knowledge curve on dealing with our material that really will allow us to deal with the increase in revenue that we believe that we're going to drive in the second quarter and third quarter. And then with our new equipment coming in the fourth quarter to give us that extra oxygen that we're going to need, and specifically going into 2024, where when you look at the pipeline of products, and you've got obviously our baseline VINIA, plus the coffee products, plus the protein bar, plus the olive cells. And then, as I said, as a little teaser, we'll be sharing some very interesting new products. We'll be launching next year as well. We're going to need that drying capacity, all right? It's going to be critical for us because the exponential growth in revenue that we expect to drive is significant. And we really feel like we've cracked the holy grail, understanding how to take red grape cells, our VINIA product, and be able to ensure that we're putting it in new products that drive multiple benefits for consumers. And you see it in the context of protein bars fitting so well with the athletics market, and that just unleashes a huge market for us, right? You'll see it in the context of what coffee does as well, drives a critical occasion for us. And you'll see more of that come to life with some of the other products we're going to introduce on that May 31 meeting, which are also going to be heavily margin accretive products. So it's important to understand that as we look at launching new products, we've got to focus on premiumization, right? And premiumization and driving gross profit margin improvements. So we'll talk more about that in the May 31 meeting.
So you're making decisions to get to break even, targeting break even by Q4, 17 million targeted revenue this year. How confident are you on the supply side that you're going to be able to produce enough to drive those numbers?
So firstly, I have a rope around my neck, with the board, and I say that I'm comfortable with it because we're just so focused on getting to break even. And I think every investor that's sitting in front of me knows how important that is. And, we're going to do whatever it takes to get as close as possible, if not over the line, to get to that break-even position. And it's good because, you have to drive such a relentless focus across the organization. And with Ilana, our new COO, coming on board, she's driving already significant change management that needs to be driven across the organization to deliver a tough outcome like that. And I think people need to realize, for a biotech company to get to break even, and when we get there, we will celebrate. But we've got a lot to do to get there. But once we get there, after spending roughly $85 million over a 15-year period, is pretty much unheard of in the industry. Most of the time, you'll see biotech companies get to a break-even position after $500 million. Maybe $1 billion in investment. So, we want to be different. So it's a huge focus. And then, you know, as far as the revenue numbers and getting where we need to get to on revenue and supply, again, we've got now the operational leadership, important operational leadership that's going to allow our manufacturing team to go to the next level. We have a great team that's got us to this stage, but, you know, our aspirations are to have literally a business that will outgrow our current capacity, potentially end of 24, early 25. We've got to start looking for new facilities, new plants, mega plants that we need to be building in order to deal with the growth opportunities. We're just talking about America right now with this product lineup. Then we start to add on Canada that comes on board. Then we start to add up China, Japan, Europe. The interest that we're getting now from what I call Arabia, right? The Middle East is enormous within a product like VINIA. Word spreads very, very quickly on the benefits of VINIA. And what's so amazing about VINIA that there's all the benefits of, you know, the French paradox, one bottle of red wine with no alcohol. So, you know, we've registered the trademark in a number of key markets because we know we need to get there. And with Ilana coming on board with her operational leadership, you know, I'm confident that we'll be able to deliver on the supply that we need for the next 6 months. But more importantly, you know, with Ilana's leadership and planning and building the culture to be able to run much bigger, multiple facilities, could be in multiple countries. And that's, you know, obviously it was so important for us to bring that operational leadership into the company.
Yeah, thank you. Couple questions. You mentioned the investors. Aaron's asking, can you comment on the what large investors, professional investors, potential partner type investors, what their thoughts are for where we're at right now? What we're doing.
Yeah, sure. Look, it's very interesting. At this juncture, our company is starting to look very, very interesting for institutions, as well as I would call it major strategic corporations that could be very, very strategic. And it's really being built by a couple of things. Firstly, our science is validated, and we continue to validate our science, right? We're seeing it as it relates to our clinical trials. We see it as it relates to winning a number of different awards, which is really putting us on a platform. And we're seeing it in the revenue numbers and the validation of our technology with literally, 25,000 plus customers. And honestly, we've put our toes in the ocean from a marketing perspective. We haven't even turned the engine on. There's so much more that we can do. So all of a sudden, outside institutions and strategic, let's call it strategic entities that potentially play in relevant categories, they start to look at us with a very, very unique, in a very, very unique way. And then also importantly, the world that we're calling botanical synthesis, the world of plants and the world of plants really starting to kind of have a regenesis, if you want to call it, around driving people's health and people going back to nature and going back to the plant. We're starting to see this. Look at what you're seeing in the context of, plant-based milk, plant-based proteins. I mean, you're just seeing just such a huge resurgence and growth in those industries. So we are today, as a company, becoming more and more attractive to institutional investors. And soon, I believe, we'll be able to crack that as a relatively small cap company crossing the line for institutional investors. And importantly as well, for other major strategic companies that are looking at the right strategic partnerships with us because of the capability of our platform technology, not just with, because of red grape cells or VINIA and olive cells, but just what our technology can do, because our technology can do this across thousands of plants in the plant kingdom. So we're really, what we've done in the last 3 years is now we're on the map, right? And we're driving a leadership position in the swim lane that we're in, and we're really starting to get noticed. And the calls are coming in, and we're having the right dialogues, and we'll choose and prioritize. But we've got to stay focused on delivering the revenue and improving our margins and driving cost of goods down and improving marketing efficiency. Because, if we stay focused on this, and most importantly, with a spirit of continuing to make a major impact on consumers' health, all that other stuff will kind of take care of itself.
Yeah, we've got maybe another 5 minutes of Q&A. There's a lot of questions here. There's a lot of real detailed technical questions for Brian. I think we'll probably answer those directly or maybe do another event. Ilan, maybe I'll just 5 minutes to just focus on the go-to-market type questions that are here. We also have a lot of questions about our research and development, other cell types. You just mentioned the potential for the different cell banks that we've been working on for the past years and future ones. We should probably do a session on that. But if I can, I'll go 5 more minutes here and just focus on marketing and clinical related. There's a really good question here about coffee and or protein bars. You mentioned Walmart.com. Is it going to be a purely online distribution, or are you talking about like grocery shelves?
That's a great question. Look, it's all about sequencing, right? And it's similar to, I touched on it a little bit earlier. For us, let's start with VINIA, right? We've started to get noticed as a brand in the e-commerce world. And when you start to get noticed and you start to basically have credibility, then all of a sudden what happens is the retail world wakes up. Let's call it the big block retailers in the US, you know who they are. And all of a sudden there's a dialogue that will happen. And when we come to the table in those dialogues, because we've built the brand, we've got significant customer base, we've got credibility, the nature of the discussion is very different, right? It's them pulling you versus you pushing them. And so we will, over time, whether it's VINIA, whether it's coffee or protein bars, the start will always be e-commerce because we're very targeted. We want to build the business quickly. We want the cash flow. I don't want to wait 90 days to get cash coming in from a retailer. I don't want to be begging for margins. That's not the way to build a business with a position of strength. We have to build the brand, build the customer base, build our credibility. And if you do that the right way, surgically and strategically, those retail opportunities will come to us, and we will make the right decisions on where to enter and when to enter. So it's all about sequencing it the right way. And when you go to retail, you want to go to retail with a position of strength.
Excellent. Well, then for go-to-markets, specific questions about being able to order from Canada. And then also, like Walter asked, if guidance on potential dates to officially be entering different global markets.
So let's just cover
for Canada. VINIA. I'm thinking VINIA's.
Let's cover Canada first. Health Canada, they run, I think it's like a 385 day from the time you put it in to the time they have to give you your final answers on an application. Theoretically, based on their timeline, Canada should come online end of November, early December this year. Now, I've heard rumors that they're running a little bit late. There's a bit of a queue. So Canada will come online end of this year, maybe early next year, depending on the pipeline that's going into Health Canada. There's really nothing that we can do. We put all the papers in, we've given everything that they need, and it's just kind of working through the process. I understand some of the frustrations for our Canadian investors and Canadian customers getting it from the US, but that's the intent for us to build a business in Canada with the right partners in Canada. And we're busy now in that process, thinking through what that route to market looks like. It'll be a Canadian website. It'll have Canadian labeling, the way it needs to work based on the Health Canada guidelines. As it relates to other countries, the big one is really for us is going into the e-commerce, cross-border e-commerce for markets like China. And that's something we can do quickly once we have the right supply. It's literally taking US product and moving that into China, and that's a huge opportunity for us. And then obviously Europe's important for us as it relates to just the size of the market, but there's a process to go through there with the European authorities. It's a slow process. But I want to go back to the size of the prize in the US. It's just so big for us as we look to operate across the different areas. Like if we get functional coffee right, it's it could be a monster, right? Think about, how big, like I said, you have millions and millions of Keurig machines. The pod culture is so big in the US. We will go into also Nespresso pods. We'll start with Keurig pods because Keurig has about 90% of the market in the US, and with Nespresso or Nestle, I should say, or even though it's out of patent, the other system, let's call it, has a smaller market share, albeit it's growing. So we just have to prioritize Keurig first, and then we'll go into the Nestle, the Nespresso system, we have to just make sure that we're not splitting ourselves too broadly when the size of the prize is so big in a market like the US. We want to build efficiency, marketing efficiency, and it's, these are just some of the trade-offs that we're going to have to make. And I think we'll make the right trade-offs when the time comes.
Okay. Yeah, today we're not talking about other cell cultures, but for Walter and Ryan, on the cannabinoid cells, no major updates to report on this quarter. You said pod culture, not pot culture. It's pod culture, you just said. But yeah,
pods.
Yeah, I know. Maybe last question, because we're up at the 2 hours here. Ilan, just question, hasn't seen the financing been announced closed. How's the financing efforts going? Maybe we'll just end with that. It's a good investment question, and then take us home. Yeah, look, we are working hard on the financing. The market generally is challenging, but we've actually had a number of very good prospects, some very strategic that make a lot of sense for us to partner with. And I'm confident that over the next 4 to 6 weeks, we're going to be moving quickly to close what we need to close. But yeah, we've been very fortunate so far. It's been a positive and constructive process. And we have some very good potential partners at the table that will come in, hopefully, in this round of financing. And we look to close it, obviously, as soon as possible for me, because it's just our focus. But I think the next 4 to 6 weeks, we can bring this home. Excellent. Good. Before you summarize, can I make just 2 points? A lot of questions not answered, a lot of technical medical questions. I will make sure that Brian, you will get a response directly. I think we should set up a different event, Brian, to help with those kind of questions. And then also we've been rolling out new pages on the website. If anybody does notice, if you got questions about what something means, potentially there's links that go to a page that confuses you. Please just contact Justin at bioharvest.com, and I'd appreciate the Q&A from you. So the quality assurance, yeah. Excellent. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. It's amazing. We've had a lot of people stay with us for nearly 2 hours. Clearly just demonstrates your engagement and your interest and belief in what we're doing, and we very much appreciate that. I'm very fortunate. We have a very talented leadership team around me. People like, Brian, Dr. Yoki, that you've been exposed to, and you'll in the course of the next few months, you'll start to get exposed to our COO, Ilana. And of course, you have the pleasure of having Justin at your side all the time. But yeah, look, we're very focused on what we're doing. There's very few small cap companies that are giving guidance like we're giving guidance, and are, as clear and open on what the priorities of the business are. And we're good with that because, we're all on this journey together. I think it's very clear, hopefully after today's discussion, it's very clear from you on what the priorities are, what we're doing to execute on the marketing side. And hopefully you've got that critical window into the work that Brian's doing and what it holds for us from a future perspective as it relates to the pharmaceutical pillar, which is future revenue, but it also allows us to do a lot of work to validate new opportunities in the nutraceutical space, which will be revenue, which will be a lot more immediate. And then importantly, as we've discussed for the last half an hour, 45 minutes, even in the Q&As, what we're doing to generate more revenue today, and then to literally leverage the scale to improve the overall financial performance of the business. So
it was important for myself and Justin, given the fact that we've pushed our more, the reporting of revenue now, not sales orders, the reporting of revenue to tie in with the requirements of the exchange. It was important for us not to wait until May 31 to be able to engage with our shareholder partners. And that's why we decided to have this meeting, to be able to give you, a view in, again, and understanding the momentum that's in the business and where we're going. So I hope we've achieved that objective, and I'm looking forward to coming back in, just over 3 weeks to share with you the first quarter results, because that's when we will announce them, and then to provide you with, I guess, more detailed guidance regarding revenue by quarter based on activities. And, each week we have more and more information that we'll be able to then, that'll be a very important meeting to provide more information regarding what I call the downhill, being, from May 31 till December 31, what we're doing to execute in the business. So thank you.
You also did mention that there might be some new product.
Yes, we will be sharing some big new product ideas we have on May 31.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Ilan. Thank you so much for joining, Brian.
Oh, of course, anytime.
Yeah, and so I will share the recording and today's presentation if you're interested in seeing, especially Brian's. Just send me an email, justin@bioharvest.com, and I'll get you the presentation.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate all your support. And Justin, I'm sure will be very studious in getting back on the questions.